Okay, we are continuing our deep dives into celebrity makeup artist styles. So today I'm going to be focusing on Melanie Iglesias. I think I called her Iglesias a few times, so apologies for that. That's my brain. She is the makeup artist of people like, most famously, Jenna Ortega. You've been seeing her do a ton of looks on her. These really beautiful, sort of like softly romantic yet gothic styles. Also Anna de Armas and is that mostly? Oh, Julia Gardner. Yeah, she's a celebrity makeup artist, so a few different people, but most notably Jenna Ortega. So we are going to today be breaking down her approach to base makeup. I'm going to be breaking down this one particular look on Jenna Ortega, but I'm going to break it down in a few different videos. So we're going to be focusing on base today. I'm also going to have a video on the eyes, the lips, and the brows. So look out for those. They'll be linked around if they're up already. If you were a fan of my Nina Park series, then you're really going to like this. And we're just going to get right into it, dude. Okay, so Melanie likes to focus on obviously a very sculpted look. When you look at Jenna Ortega, it's pretty obvious. I mean, that bone structure, like, you can't really avoid it. She often uses devices to sculpt the face before skin prep and makeup and everything to really like create, I guess a very, very sculpted base. I don't necessarily believe in devices. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have a strong opinion about that. Regardless, she loves a sculpted look and matte natural looking skin. I would say like in some looks, it's a little more glowy. And the skin almost looks dewy. In others, it's sort of like a soft satin matte. So she has a bit of a range there, but either way, like if she's going for glowy or soft matte, the skin looks very natural. You often see a lot of like freckles coming through, which, similar to Nina Park, really just kind of makes the makeup look like a part of the person, which is something that I love. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. I already primed my face or prepped my face. I used the Anua 70 Rice something, the toner, and then the Milky Essence. So both Anua, both the 70 Rice something. I will link it, obviously. So my skin is like well hydrated, not looking too oily, greasy, not too matte, not too dry. So the foundation that I'm going to use today is the one from About Face. This is in the shade F2 Olive. This is one of my favorite foundations. I know you probably can't hear that, but the cat, she wants to play. And when she wants to play, she brings me this little ribbon because I'm supposed to play with her. And right now she's playing with the little ribbon over here. Okay, so this foundation is one of my favorites for a very natural look. It has like a really nice medium buildable coverage, but I would say that the finish is pretty satin, like very, very natural. And it's a beautiful shade, especially if you are someone who is more on the olive side, like a light olive. It's kind of like a little bit more neutral. So I'm just going to put this on the back of my hand. It does have a doe foot. And I'm actually going to be using my brush with Rephr. If you didn't know, it is out. This is the 38 brush. So I'm going to dip into that foundation and buff it on the back of my hand. You can use a sponge, you can use a brush, whatever works for you. Okay, so I'm going to start off working this in the center of the face. Just like I would any other time. Just making sure to create like a nice, flawless base, neutralizing any like redness. Making sure to just like even out the tone so that we have like a nice place to start. And what I love about especially these celebrity makeup looks, especially recently, we've sort of had this like move away from like, not that it doesn't exist anymore, it definitely does, but the like overly done like Kardashian look. Like I said, it still exists. But we've had a real move, especially with makeup artists like Nina Park, like Melanie, like Katie Jane Hughes, who's been around forever, of celebrating skin, like really celebrating skin and enhancing things like freckles and little things that might be considered imperfections. And then anywhere where I want just like a little more coverage, I'm just patting it into the skin. Where I have like a little more, like ever so slightly more redness or just like kind of a cluster of breakouts, I'm just building up a teeny bit more in that area so that I can do a little less when I spot conceal. Okay, I'm not entirely sure what order she does everything in. I personally like to contour next, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna stick to my favorite contour product. This is the CoverGirl True Blend Skin Enhanced Contour Balm. This is in the shade Defined. It's such a, I swear this is like one of my new favorite products. It's such a perfect contour shade if you are close to my skin tone. If contours end up looking orange, red, maybe too purpley, maybe just too brown. I would say warm in general. It has a lot of green in it, which is like amazing, especially if you're someone who is more on the olive side. Or maybe you have just like a little too much, not too much, but if you have a little more yellow in your skin, it's really fantastic. It looks exactly like my natural shadow color. So Jenna's very sculpted, meaning she has like a teeny little bone structure, okay? Like she's teeny tiny, like those bones are sculpted, right? So regardless of Melanie's technique when it comes to sculpting, she's already very sculpted. So I'm going to replicate that as much as I can. Remember to do this for your face shape, okay? So if you, I mean, I don't look anything like Jenna Ortega. If you don't look anything like Jenna Ortega, just remember that if you're trying to kind of like emulate her vibe, you might need to do a little more, you might need to do a little less, okay? So I'm gonna use that same brush. I'm just gonna wipe it off on my little Sigma pad. I'm gonna dip into my contour balm. And I'm gonna use this to sculpt the jawline. So this is gonna be very different for everybody depending on what your face shape is. So I'm gonna follow mine. This is a technique that I do in every single video where I do my base. So I'm not gonna focus on it specifically because this video isn't necessarily about how I do my contour specifically. We'll talk about, we'll get a little bit more in depth when we get to the rest of the face. So I'm just gonna speed through this part a little bit. One thing I am going to do with my contour is I am going to extend my contour from here up a little bit. So you kind of want to like figure out where you want to place. It's going to be different for different people. But when I kind of like double chin it up, I have this little area right here. She has a very sculpted, gothic look. So I just kind of want to like increase this hollow a little bit. Now, if you're not careful, this can make you look really old, like way older than you are. So just be careful, like you don't need to draw it on. You don't need to go too intense. But if you are trying to go for like slightly more gothic look, this really helps to sculpt the face. Give you kind of like that hollowed out, what was this stuff called? Buccal fat. When all the celebs were getting their buccal fat removed, allegedly. So you're just kind of following the natural hollow of your cheek down, you know? And depending on your face shape, you might want to take this in a little further or out a little further. Now, to emulate her very sculpted cheekbones, I'm going to once again pick up with my brush, and I'm going to really like focus on carving out those cheekbones. So I'm not going to take this too far because she does have like a really nice bronze. Is hair on my face? Is it cat hair? Hold on. What did I say? She has a really nice bronze. Like her face is not like, even though the colors on her face are quite cool in tone, they're not like dead looking, right? We're going for like a goth glam, not like super goth. So I am going to be using this to just kind of like sculpt that cheekbone, and I'm making sure to really blend up. Okay, so we're just trying to like enhance that hollow a little bit. It doesn't need to be too crazy because, like I said, Jenna has quite the bone structure as it is. She doesn't need a ton of sculpting. depending on your face shape, if you're trying to emulate this, you may need to apply more product, use a deeper product, place it in like a slightly different area. So just keep that in mind. So I'm really utilizing the tip of this brush. You can see I'm holding it like this. So the tip of the brush is kind of helping to create that line under the cheekbone to really sculpt. And then the rounder part of the brush is really doing the blending for us. And I'm just gonna kind of fade this in a little bit just to connect. Now I'm going to go in with my bronzer. Now her bronzer is not like so warm toned. She's not like looking like bronzy. She is looking warmed up, sculpted, shaped. Again, in any of these looks, the color is not like so incredibly golden. She does have like quite a bit of golden in her skin. From what I can see, she looks like a warm, like a neutral warm. Like she leans maybe ever so slightly warm, but she doesn't have like way too much yellow in her skin. So these cooler tones she can get away with, you know? And if her bronzer was just like too orange or yellow, it would look very weird with these like cool toned lips and cool toned eyes that she has going on. So I'm going to be using a bronzer that's ever so slightly more on the neutral side. My typical bronzer usually is what's this called? Quince from Merit, which is pretty warm. You know, it's a little lighter, but it's pretty warm. And I just think that this is a little like inappropriate for this look. Yeah, I actually picked up these contour sticks from House Labs. I picked up 2 of them. One's a little more cool. They're pretty close. One's a little more cool toned and one's a little bit more warm. So I think I'm going to use the slightly warmer one, which is Angel, right? No, Angle, not Angel. I'm going to use Angle to do my bronze. So again, I am not going to just like draw this on the face, although I think the point of these is so that you can do that to be able to contour and make it easy. But I am once again going to just wipe my brush off and pick it up with the brush. And I'm going to start on my forehead because she does have a relatively shaped forehead. Now they're pretty pigmented, so just, you know, be careful. I probably picked up too much. Ooh, yeah, I picked up too much. Ooh, okay. Just gonna blend that on the back of my hand. Very nice, very blendable. This is actually my first time using them. So I'm gonna focus this up by my hairline to do a little bit of sculpting, and I'm gonna utilize the point of the brush to go around my hairline so I'm not getting it all up in my hair. I'm gonna make sure I'm really sculpting this part of the head. This area is very warmed up, really creating like a nice sculpted shape of the forehead. And I'm focusing this on the outer perimeter and then just gently bringing it in towards the center. Okay, and then I'm going to do a similar thing for the cheekbones. I'm going to once again pick it up on my brush. I'm buffing it on the back of my hand right here so that I'm evenly distributing it on the brush, because this product is just like a little bit smaller than my other one. So I just want to make sure that I'm not going in with like a glob in one area. And I'm going to kind of like focus this bronze in sort of this shape. Okay, so we're taking from the forehead to the temple, and then we're just sort of cupping in a C shape the cheekbones. We already did like quite a bit of sculpting with that contour shade. I just want to make sure that I'm sort of connecting it. Brother, I got cat hairs everywhere right now. Okay. Ziva's constantly dealing with like health problems, which is stressing me out. So I've been following her around all day. She's okay, but you know, just stressful stuff. Anyway, so I'm gonna make sure that I'm really sculpting this area. So you can see we're really starting to like create like this nice soft shape to the face and warmth, but this is not so warm. Like I have a very warm undertone, like a very warm undertone, but I am like warm olive and I have quite a bit of yellow in my skin. But I'm also quite pale. Because I'm so pale, and Jenna is not as pale as I am, colors will often look a little more saturated on me. So imagine putting a color on a white piece of paper versus like a tan piece of paper, you know? Okay, so we have this really nice sculpt and shape on this side of the face. Now I'm just going to bring it in here a little bit. Whatever's left over on the brush, just gonna kind of swoop it in. And I'm doing this with a slightly warmer shade so that this part of my face doesn't end up looking gray. And then connecting it into like what we brought down here. You don't need a ton, okay, to like create a little bit more of that sculpt. But it just sort of like adds a teeny bit of like a hollowing in this area. See how this area over here, because it's lighter, looks just like a little bit more full? And this area is just sort of being pushed in slightly. Okay? Okay. It looks like she has like a little bit of bronzer on the top of her nose, in addition to the freckles. So I'm just going to use that same brush, that same bronzer, and I'm just going to pop a little bit just over the top. Now, if you want to really intensify this effect, what you can do is grab one of your contour sticks. I'm gonna grab the slightly cooler toned one now, which is Chisel, in the shade Chisel. I believe this is for neutral skin tones. And just where I see like quite a bit of that chisel in her face, I'm just going to do like the tiniest line there. You don't need a lot, but I just want a little more precision there. Okay. And then I'm going to turn my brush so that I'm utilizing this part right here. And I'm going to diffuse, just slowly diffuse that color. This is one of my favorite. I feel like I've learned this trick from doing Halloween makeup. This is one of my favorite things about Halloween makeup, is that you can make this like really intense. And obviously, you know, she's Wednesday. Very gothic. So this whole thing is pretty acceptable. Okay, and then I'm just going to pat because I want to make sure that I am diffusing that. Okay, so can you see how it really like, this part, you know? The closer you bring it into your mouth, the more hollow it ends up looking. Okay? And I'm gonna do a little bit with some concealer to kind of enhance this effect as well. So now I'm going to grab my concealers. Now I use a few different concealers for slightly different things, especially because I have very dark circles underneath my eyes. So I use a color corrector, NARS Nougatine. Okay, this is the Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade NARS Nougatine, which is quite warm. It has like kind of a peachy, orangey sort of like color to it. When I layer a lighter concealer on top of it, it warms up the darkness so that it doesn't look gray. Okay, now Jenna, I know we're going gothic here, but she just doesn't really like she looks, what? She really doesn't look like she has like dark circles. It's not like so concealed under her eyes. So I'm gonna kind of like mix those two concepts. Then my favorite concealer for my skin tone, Kosas Revealer Concealer in 0.5 neutral. And then for a little bit of highlighting, I'm going to be using House Labs. This is in the shade 01 Fair Neutral. So I put these all on the back of my hand like this so that I can kind of like mix between shades as I go, spot conceal, whatever. So I'm actually going to pick up a Rephr 13 brush. I'm going to start off with my color corrector. And I'm just going to pop this, what? I'm just going to pick this up. I'm doing the same thing I did with my foundation brush. So I'm picking it up and then I'm just kind of buffing it into the brush on the back of my hand. Okay. So I'm not going in with way too much. And then I'm going to focus this in just the darkest area of the under eye. So right in the hollow and then like in this inner corner a little bit. And then just whatever is left over, buffing towards the outer part. And like I said, I don't think she really has dark circles, but you can see like a little bit of a gray tone around her eyes, just like a teeny bit. So it doesn't look like she's color corrected. There's just like a little bit of concealer. So I don't want to overdo this. Like that does like quite a bit of work, you know? I just don't need a lot. Okay, once again, wiping that brush off. I'm just gonna let that sit for a minute while I do concealer around the rest of the face. So I am going to pick up my Kosas concealer once again, which is like pretty much matches my skin tone. It's not like brightening or anything. It's just kind of like where I want a little bit more coverage. And I'm going to do the corners of the mouth. So I'm not taking this out too far because we sort of like created this hollow in here. I just want to like lift the corners of the mouth, and I get a little bit of darkness in this area. Once again, picking up that same color, placing this around the nose where I have like a little extra redness. Again, tiniest amounts, just making sure that I'm building up a little bit of coverage. Sorry, just making sure it's all blended in. Okay, now to really enhance the sculpt, I'm gonna pick up that same color. So it's not gonna be too light. If you use like your highlighting concealer, sometimes it can look like a little much. I'm going to, just underneath where we place that contour, place a teeny bit of that concealer. So I'm just gonna kind of like help to carve out that sculpt. Okay, just like that. Now obviously you don't want to leave this like sharp line, so I'm kind of placing it down like that, and then I'm going to grab my face brush where I put it, and I'm going to use the side of it to just pat gently to softly diffuse that line. Okay, so now it's like softly blended, but we really have the effect of that cinching. Now this is a step that Melanie does not need to do because Jenna's bone structure already does this. So this is a little extra to just show you how to achieve that really cut bone structure, because in my opinion, this look is just like very much dependent on it. Like it really, really pops. Like it really gives that goth glam when you have this sort of sculpted out look to the face. Just going in with that and blending right in here. Just want to make sure that you always want to make sure that there's no harsh lines. So like right here looks a little harsh. Just want to pat a little bit. Okay. Now she does have a really nice sort of like highlighted area right here. So I'm going to mix a little bit of Kosas with that House Labs concealer, kind of like 1-to-1, because that's my brightening concealer. And I'm just going to focus this right here in the center, like between the brows, and then just like this little triangle square area right here. I'm gonna grab Nikki's N16 brush to blend that out. Her nose looks slightly contoured, and since I put that bronzer there, I'm just gonna take the side of this brush and just diffuse down to kind of like straighten a little bit. So there's gonna be the most gentle straight line going down my nose, but we're gonna not cover it up, but we're gonna be like putting freckles in. Now for underneath the eyes, I'm going to go in with my Kosas and a little bit of House Labs again. So just a teeny little bit on that same brush. And I'm going to focus this in the hollow on top of that color corrector. So this time I'm not swiping, I'm patting. And I'm kind of just using this product to place it down and then just like right out here. And I'm really just focusing this in the hollow. And blend that out. Perfect. Okay, now, so much fun. I love this part. I'm gonna be going in with my freckles. So I have two different colors. I have a very in-depth freckle tutorial that I posted. I will pop it up here. It's super in-depth and it's great. It's how to make your freckles look natural. I'm gonna start off with light. This is the Go With The Faux from Tarte. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of apply this, but if you want a nice walkthrough of how to apply freckles that look natural, then I highly recommend that video. I'm just gonna kind of like emulate her placement. I don't know if her freckles are real or not, but I love them. They're so cute. And I love that makeup artists are really like using freckles as like a part of the makeup now. I just love it. So hers kind of go down like this, almost like a V shape, and then go back up. Okay, and then she has some freckles up above her eyebrows and on her forehead. And kind of just like dispersed around the face, which makes freckles look a lot more natural. If they're fake, which I don't know. Cute. I love this. Okay, I'm gonna do some quick spot concealing. I have a spot concealing video that I will pop right here because I don't have that much to do. You just don't need to see it. Okay, that took no time at all. It just had like mostly this little spot down here. So I'm very happy with this base. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. Now we're gonna set. I'm gonna use my L'Oreal Infallible Blurfection powder. This is in the shade 20 Translucent Light. Should have guessed. And I'm gonna use another one of my brushes, but it's just clean. So I'm gonna start underneath my eyes. I'm just gonna make sure. Wait, I look so cute. Sorry, just had to admire. I'm just gonna make sure there's no creasing in here. I'm just gonna pat with Nikki's brush, and then I'm going in with my brush. Okay, and then I'm just going to focus this in all the areas where I tend to get a little oily. So just around my nose, basically the T-zone. Making sure to set anything that might move. This is such a nice powder because it has kind of like a soft luminosity to it. Like if you've used, remember e.l.f., what's it called? What was that e.l.f. palette that or e.l.f. powder that I used to use under my eyes all the time? Something glow. What was that? It had like quite a bit of pearl in it. I really liked it for underneath my eyes because it had like a nice light reflection, which was just good because of, you know, it was just created like a really nice brightening effect for anyone who has dark circles. I did kind of stop using it. This, however, that powder, if you use it anywhere else on your face, especially if you're oily, it can make you look real oily. This has a beautiful luminosity to it. Like it has like the teeniest bit of reflection in it. So it ends up not mattifying your face way too much. But it won't make you look oily. Maybe if you're like ridiculously oily, but like in my T-zone, I can get oily. So, and this powder is really great for that. So I'm mostly focusing it in the center of the face because that's where I want, because Melanie does really love that natural glow to the skin. So I'm just making sure that anywhere where I like would end up looking oily is mattified. But I'm avoiding the cheekbones, okay, the outer perimeter of the face, where my skin has a really beautiful, natural, healthy looking glow. Get out of here. At this point, I really like to assess, do I need to reinforce anything? Do I need to build up any kind of a bronze? Do I need to do any more shaping with a powder, with a little bit of a powder? Now, what's interesting about Melanie is that she doesn't really use blush. If she does, it's quite subtle, quite muted, especially on Jenna. You don't really see blush if she is using blush. It's kind of like a taupey, sort of like rosy shade, you know, it's like a little bit more neutral. It's not overt. We're like anti-Sabrina Carpenter, okay? You'll see softer shades like softer corals, peaches on Julia Garner. I always say her name wrong. If there is a little bit of blush on Jenna, it looks relatively like bronzy, muted. And you know, there's some visible blush on Ana de Armas, but again, very, very like natural. She's not overdoing it. So one of my tricks for this is something you can do if you feel like, I don't want to have to buy a muted blush. I don't want to have to buy a taupey blush. What can I do? Something you can do is just like mix a little bit of either your cream blush, like your go-to cream blush, with a little bit of your bronzer, or with a little bit of your contour, or all three, to kind of create a custom shade. Now, I didn't do that with cream. If you're doing it with powder, you can kind of like tap back between all of them. I might do that. Yeah, I'm gonna use the House Labs, these two House Labs product. So I have the Soleil Sand Fair Power Sculpt Bronzer from House Labs, and then I have the Pomelo Peach. I'm gonna use the teeniest amount of peach, and what I'm gonna do is, using my brush, I'm gonna use a fresh one because I like to use a different one for powders. I'm just going to literally can't pick this up and show you, but I'm just going to tap back and forth between them and then blend it out on the back of my hand. So this is a really great trick. So now when I look at her face, it looks like she has maybe like the teeniest bit right here that just sort of blends into her bronzer. Just like, that much. Like, hardly at all. Just like the slightest color to the face. And that is one of my favorite tricks to muting a blush. Don't forget that you can mix your powder products too. Okay, isn't that gorgeous? So it's just like little teeny bit of a hue. Like I can see the tiniest bit of a hue on her cheeks. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Just gonna pat this down the nose. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. I think we look sculpted. We look warmed up. Not too warm, not too bronzy, but I feel like this is a very good sort of like recreation of this look in particular on my skin tone. I have a few other videos to film around this, and I will be right back. You'll see the full thing with everything. All right, I look so different. I filmed the eyes, the brows, and the lips. So if you are interested in those videos, they will be either linked in the description or linked throughout this video. They'll all be connected in some way. The cat is about to go into the litter box. I'm gonna talk through it because I don't care. This is the finished look all together, okay? Beautiful base. Love, absolutely love. One thing that I did not mention is that Melanie does like to mix a little bit of a liquid illuminizer in with her foundation, typically. I did not do that because I felt that my skin had enough luminosity where it was. I didn't need that. So always keep in mind your skin type. If you tend to be a little bit more oily, you might not want to do that. And you can focus it on the, outer perimeter of the face. I am, just because we're here, I'm gonna take a little sponge. I'm gonna take a little bit of my Auric. This is Morganite Glow Lust. I'm gonna put a little bit of this on the back of my hand. Try not to put too much out. And I'm just gonna work this into the sponge. You could use a brush. And I'm just gonna pop a little bit of this on the high points of the cheeks and that's it. Just to amp up a little bit of glow. I felt like my skin was already like relatively dewy, like it looked nice. So I just didn't really think it was super necessary. But if you want to, I would highly recommend using some kind of a luminizer because that definitely seems to be her vibe. She doesn't seem to use powder highlights too often, at least from the work that I've seen. So yeah, with that is the finished look. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoy this series. If you do, please let me know what makeup artist you want me to break down next, or if there are any specific looks from Melanie that you want me to recreate. Yeah, dude, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. My hair is so like, it's in a weird place, you know? When you're growing out a pixie, it's just like, it reaches so many different places constantly. It's like the second you get used to it, it's bad again. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Love you. I gotta go eat something. I've been filming all day. And I'll see you next time.